This module crossbreed is the most recent variation of the full-measure Range Rover. It matches a 85 kWh electric engine with a 296-strength, 2.0-liter turbocharged 4-barrel for an aggregate framework yield of 398 drive and 472 pound-feet of torque. The 400D has 31 miles of all-electric range and EV mode is accessible up to 85 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour passes by in only 6.4 seconds, snappier than the gas V6 demonstrate because of overflowing measures of off-the-line torque. Power is sent to every one of the four wheels through a ZF-composed 8-speed programmed. Land Rover needed to make it clear that the 400D was similarly as proficient as each other Range Rover display, consequently the water risk, sloppy slope climb, and a trek through a field that noticed not really faintly of excrement. All that you would anticipate from a Range Rover is here, from the terrain response footing settings to the air suspension to the cowhide situates that cosset you like the landed upper class you seek to be. For 2018, the Range Rover was refreshed with new lighting both front and back, another grille, and reconsidered front and back guards. Inside, all Range Rovers now have the 2-screen infotainment framework from the littler Range Rover Velar. It's an appreciated update, however despite everything it falls behind Mercedes-Benz Command, BMW iDrive and Audi MMI. The interface once in a while bumbles and slacks and some essential controls are covered up in submenus. The agreeable seats get extra cushioning and movable seating capacities. Checking the case for the executive seating bundle gives front and back inhabitants more extensive, milder and more movable seats. It's justified, despite all the trouble in case you're thinking about the long wheelbase display. The additional legroom gives space to a collapsing ottoman. It's the most agreeable secondary lounge this side of a Mercedes Maybach. In relatively every angle, the 400D is undefined from its non-charged partners. Outwardly, the main things that give away the PHEV from its skin are the 400D identification on the back and the board in the grille that shrouds the charging port. Inside, you'll discover a power meter has supplanted the tachometer and an EV mode catch has been put on the comfort close to the landscape select handle. That is it. No green or blue identifications, no air wheels with sketchy outlines and no one-of-a-kind front sash. It just resembles some other Range Rover. We think the nuance is something to be thankful for. It drives like one, as well, more often than not. Since the electric engine is housed inside the transmission, the 400D is able to do all-electric four-wheel drive running. When swimming through water, Land Rover proposes keeping the motor running and not crossing water in EV mode so as to keep fluids out of the fumes framework. The low-end torque is in rough terrain. There's dependably control when you require it, so energizing slopes or driving through mud basically requires dunking into the throttle and holding the wheels in the trenches. Straight off the line, the 400D feels similarly as solid as a Range Rover with the supercharged 5.0-liter V8. It vanishes mid-revs, yet around town it feels comfortable. Passing on new streets can be nerve-wracking, yet the 400D's torque makes it a breeze. Like each other Range Rover, the sound disconnection is fabulous. This is made liberally clear when driving in EV mode. The 400D feels like a moving whisper room, with only a little murmur from the electric engine and the periodic ambiguous whoosh from a passing auto. Driving through little English towns with an unadulterated electric mode give you a casual and comfortable feeling. This quiet is sporadically separated when the gas 4-barrel kicks on. The motor is peaceful more often than not, yet under full throttle it sounds unpleasant and gets a handle on particularly of place. In any event it doesn't hold revs like autos with CVTs. There are drawbacks to driving like a Range Rover, as well. In spite of the greater part of the aluminum, this is as yet a 2.5-ton SUV. More often than not, it conceals its weight well, yet infrequently an off-camber corner or uneven street will truly make the 400D flounder like an alcoholic on the teacup ride at Disneyland. It's not as formed as some lighter or sportier SUVs, so you need to hose your speed a bit. The ride is on the firm side, as well. Designers needed to harden things to represent the additional weight from the battery Outback 200 pounds in excess of a V8 and 500 pounds in excess of a V6. It's the most noticeably awful riding Range Rover this side of a SV-tuned item, yet that resembles saying Dazed Love is the most exceedingly terrible Paul Thomas Anderson film. It's as yet significantly better than most everything else out there. The 400e is superior to anything a body-on-outline SUV like the Cadillac Escalade or Infiniti QX80. All that stated, the brakes function admirably given the measure of mass they're being saddled with. Superior to normal for a half and half. There was no discernible low-speed tweak issues like on other Regan frameworks, and they never had any issues backing off this much mass. They likely spared the lives of a couple of turkey-sized fowls crossing the street, however few out of every odd feathered creature endured unscathed. It wasn't us, however we can't discount any other individual. Nothing else out and about looks, feels or drives very like a Range Rover. The organization was building refined SUVs for affluent landowners previously the expression brandish utility vehicle was ever instituted. The 400d module crossover expands on what Land Rover has been improving the situation about 50 years. It's basically a Range Rover that packs a powertrain that is significantly more in contact with the circumstances than a supercharged V8 or turbocharged diesel. There's no eco-accommodating styling or contrivances. It doesn't need to yell or make a major complaint about its half-breed powertrain. It basically continues on ahead unobtrusively and skillfully, as you would anticipate from any non-SUV Range Rover. The way that you don't lose any of the Range Rover center abilities is an enormous in addition to. Truly, the ride is somewhat firm, and the 4-barrel every so often breaks the tomb-like detachment, yet the trade-off in efficiency can't be exaggerated. The greatest issue the 400e has is Jaguar Land Rover's awesome 5.0-liter supercharged V8. Extravagance vehicle proprietors would prefer not to settle on pardons or legitimize their choices. It's the reason you should purchase a V12 Mercedes Maybach over the V8 variant. You never need to clarify a V12 identification. It represents itself with no issue. Around the city, it feels similarly as intense as the V8 demonstrate, so you don't feel like you are losing anything there. Running noiseless is tremendously ameliorating and something you can't do with a V8. There's likewise the green card that joins driving a module crossbreed. Dissimilar to the diesel or V6 Range Rovers, the 400d makes to a greater extent the case for itself than just laying on its enhanced efficiency trees. Persuading proprietors that they needn't bother with a V8 will be the 400e's greatest assignment.